If you feel like dancing, don't say that I'm a CEO or I'm a chief vigilance officer of this company. I can't be seen dancing. Any company that I worked with had to take into account that I would get empowered and I would be able to allowed to make mistakes. I'm not hesitant to say that I learned a lot from the shadow board, which I average age was 29. He asked me a very fundamental question. What is the purpose of your life? I've always felt is that God has made me or empowered me to make an impact. I think most of us don't take a pause to understand who we are. That a day after my retirement for my reboot, I came to Kanha. But I think I had the meditation session, 2 sessions, with the best trainer in the world, which is Daji himself.
Woof woof. Welcome to GhanaCast. Today I'm speaking to CP Gurnani, who is a lifelong entrepreneur and has held several leading positions in a career spanning 40 plus years, including with Hewlett Packard and HCL Corporation. He recently retired as Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Tech Mahindra. Thank you so much, sir, for taking the time out and coming to the Kanha studio. It's a real honor and a privilege to host you at Kanha Shanti Vanam. So, first off, I'd like to ask you, what do you think of the campus? It's your first visit here.
Rudy, pleasantly surprised. When I came here, I came very much prepared for only one dimension, which was the meditation, which was the heartfulness. What I'm going back with is a multifaceted, a multidimensional campus, which is in a lot of ways, every day has been a lesson. For example, the way a barren land has been rejuvenated, but it's not only about water management. It is just not about just making the area green. You know, in agriculture also, when you start looking at preservation, when you start looking at endangered spices and opening a lab on tissue culture so that you could protect the endangered spices, it just shows the level of detailing that has gone into creating the Kahana as a living space. It's a living space not only for human beings, it's not only a living space for meditation, it is not a living space only for visitors, it's a living space for every plant, and even for, if I were to exaggerate, it is about a living space for tiny creatures also. So I think what you have is a beautiful experiment, and there is a feeling that at Kanha you continuously experiment. And I have a lot to share in terms of what I've observed in people, what I observed in some of the best practices. And I'm so, so glad that a day after my retirement for my reboot, I came to Kanha.
Wow. Wow. That's so beautifully put. And you also mentioned that you had heard about it being a heartfulness meditation center and you expected that. So, did you get a chance to have a meditation session here?
I mean, I'm one of those lucky ones that this is my third day. Not only I've had meditation session from the trainer, but I think I had the meditation session, 2 sessions, with the best trainer in the world, which is Daji himself. So I think I'm fortunate that I'm here for 2 days, and both the days I've had a training session with Daji.
That's amazing. And what was that experience like meeting Daji? What were your first impressions of him?
Again, that's why I said it's an approach to leadership. Every leader has his own style. I mean, you cannot deny that Daji is the leader of the movement. Daji is the leader of all of us who are, 4 million plus members out here. But I think his leadership style is very passive. It's in a way, a delegation. It's anyway an empowerment. So I'll give you an example. I walk into the canteen this morning. I meet this young man who has been on the job for 10 months only, a gentleman by the name of Sitapati. He's come from Oberoi. He has also worked in US. And here he is, you know, preparing meals which, if you buy it at 30 rupees a meal. I mean, there are, other, probably a little more expensive food items also, but his mass consumption is 30 rupees a thali. And that also, a majority of it is given free. Now, think about an innovation or a motivation. Innovation to serve it clean, serve it without any foreign particles, of innovation to make sure that you have a consistency in quality and you are doing it as a mass service. I asked Sitapati how many maximum meals has he served. He said 3 meals a day, 45,000 is the maximum I've served. 45,000 meals with the same staff, but a beautiful quality control. And I looked at his equipments, I looked at his, the level of cleanliness, I looked at his quality control. For every bag where they do visual and, final examination, they are able to catch contamination of foreign particles in a sack of rice or a sack of wheat. So, and number two was, it was 360-degree. Nothing was being wasted.
Mm.
I mean, so my point is very simple, that when you have a sense of ownership, when you have a sense of empowerment, when you have a sense of serving, I think that's a beautiful culture. And I really salute Heartfulness as an institute and obviously Daji as a leader for instilling that spirit, the spirit of achieving.
Absolutely. And it trickles down from the leader, as you would know so well, having led so many teams across your career. I wanted to ask you also, like coming to a heartfulness center. In India, we all have some sort of spiritual grounding right from childhood. We have either some sort of puja that we do or some saint that we visit. How was it for you, sir? Did you have a background in sort of a spiritual practice?
I don't think I ever called it a spiritual practice. To me, there were two parts to my life. One was that I always believed in a supreme commander. My mother used to go to a gurdwara, so I've been going to gurdwara every week for all my life. My father, while he went to the gurdwara, he also went to the temple. And over a period of time, it was just that my father passed away very early when he was only 56. And because I worked a lot in south of India, I ended up going to Lord Tirupati Balaji temple. And I felt a sense of, you know, benign presence, a sense of, somebody, who gives you a feeling that he's there on that hill. So I started saying, and to me, my prayer to the God was every morning getting up and saying, "Thank you, God. I'm grateful." Before going to bed, saying, "Thank you, God. I'm grateful. Do look after us." The rest of the 14 hours of the day were always devoted, or maybe 15 hours, maybe 18 hours a day, were always devoted to making things happen.
Hmm.
I mean, I always acknowledge the presence of God, but then God sent me to, you know, be a worker bee. God sent me here to try and make an impact. And I made sure that I am the Karam Yogi, I am the Karmat. And that's the way I designed my life. So I didn't have anything to say that I would understand spirituality or mindfulness or heartfulness. I think this is my first exposure.
Fantastic. But the Karm Yoga was very much there throughout your life. I mean, you mentioned almost sometimes even 18 hours a day would be devoted to work. Recently, we had a controversy when somebody suggested that people should be ready to work 70 hours a week. What is your take on that, sir? Should we encourage that sort of work culture, or is it harmful towards family and quality of life?
So, Rudy, everybody has his own take on what they want to
Hmm.
achieve in life. My only request is that if you analyze any individual that you ever met in life, he or she, whether the person is in government or the person is in politics or the person is in corporate life or the person is in sports or in music or in media and entertainment, all high achievers have done that cliche or the proverbial quote, running that extra mile.
Sure.
Now, to me, you can choose which lane you want to run in. You want to be in that high achiever lane, then you need to put in a little extra. You want to be in a medium lane, then you figure out an hybrid method. If you want to be on the slow lane, you choose what is your definition of slow lane. That's number one. Number two, to say, work life balance. I mean, if you enjoy your work, then it is your life.
Sure.
Number three, as far as I'm concerned, is most of us having a capability to balance that. It's got nothing to do with 70 hours. Look at Narayan Murthy, who's uh, Narayan Murthy's wife Sudha is one of the best known children book authors. She is
Absolutely.
known as the best known philanthropist, and she is recognized in her own right.
Absolutely.
Look at both the children. I mean, one was in Stanford and she ended up in 10 Downing Street.
Absolutely.
And one, Rohan, is running his own AI technology company out of UK.
Also, something about ancient texts. I think he's preserving ancient texts, also, Rohan.
Rohan is so my submission to all the listeners out here is that, guys, there is enough scope for you to do everything that you want to do without trying to put them into a test tube and say this is 5 hour test tube and this is a 6 hour test tube or this is a 7 hour test tube. Whether you use your time to work or to train yourself. I don't consider a Virat Kohli or a Tiger Woods or uh, you know any other better sportsman that when they use their time, when they get up at 3:30 in the morning and hit a pitch at 4 o'clock in the morning, they use the time for self training. Now, whether do you call it work? A good programmer, when he's learning a new language, I mean, do you call it work? Because he's not getting paid for it,
Sure, sure.
but he's getting future ready.
Hmm.
So there are different definitions of what you do and how you do and when you do. And so to me, you choose the lane you want to run in. And if you're running in that lane, I mean, you better realize that God has given us an opportunity to find our own balance on our own.
So true. So true. And I think personally for you, family has always been very important. And I was reading, of course, you also make it a point to spend time with the family. And so it's not been at a cost, really.
I mean, I can only, it's difficult to say what is that classical definition.
Hmm.
The reason is that in my case, I removed the boundary between work and home. So I brought my work colleagues home and I took my home to sometimes to workplace. So I did create that balance by just removing a boundary.
Wow.
So it's not that I go on a holiday. I do get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and till you know my family would surface and be ready to join me for breakfast, I would have already put in 3 hours of work,
Wow.
and I would finish my calls, and then at 9 o'clock onwards, I'm with them. So it's not that I'm not on a holiday, but I'm still,
Working.
I put in a little bit of work, so I'm not out of touch.
Wow. Wow. So, sir, as someone who's been recognized and won almost every CEO award there is to win, what do you think is that one quality that all leaders you think cannot do without?
You cannot be a leader without having a team to work with.
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter which leader you are, political, judicial, administrative, or a cult leader, or a religious leader, or a spiritual leader. The reality is you need a team, and it's a team that makes you successful. So anybody that I know will only succeed if the team succeeds with them. So, in putting it in a crude language, I mean, you cannot be a leader if you don't have people following you.
Sure, sure.
So, ultimately, team makes the difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's also a conflict that sometimes people feel in a leadership position, whether to value discipline or whether to value the harmony of a team. These are decisions that leaders face, if a person is not performing, at what point do you intervene and say that, or do you want to keep the harmony of the team, not hurt people's feelings, and carry on?
So, I mean, most of us know, when to become a parent, or when to become a teacher, or when to become a military commander. So, and I don't know if there is a practice school for that. Uh, I can only tell you is that whichever leader that I have studied has achieved that fine balance by balancing head and heart both. I actually brought in a third element to this, which said head, heart, and humor.
Mm.
Because, you know, life is actually very fun. It's just that we try and sometimes complicate it. So bring that fun element up front and remember that you have to bring in the fun element. And so never let the child die in you. If you feel like dancing, don't say that I'm a CEO or I'm a chief vigilance officer of this company. I can't be seen dancing. I mean, damn it, you are a human being. I mean,
Mm.
just bring that head, heart, and humor. That's number one. And number two is, end of the day, each one of us is paid. We earn our salaries. And yeah, we can have a lean moment, but it's like in a cricket team, you rotate your team if your team is not able to perform well. So as a captain, you have to take those calls.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you've been, of course, in the tech world, which changes very fast. I mean, it's continually changing and there's this innovation happening. So, as a team leader, there are people, you see innovation in the team, you see potential for innovation in people. But that on the flip side is that if you encourage everyone to be innovative, they're all going in their different directions. So where do you see that? How do you say, let's cut down on the indiscipline, let's inculcate this innovation, let's encourage this, let's not encourage this? Because if everybody started innovating, it may lead to chaos.
So, first is, let's look at a typical, and it doesn't matter which industry. It could be your industry or media, or it could be an industry in agriculture or anyone. There is a set of people whose dominant hand is following instructions. There will be a set of people who are, and I learned this in a very beautiful way. I must share the story with you. My grandfather was an immigrant from Pakistan. He eventually landed up running an oil mill in a place called Nimbahara in Rajasthan. And as a young person, I would see him leave home in an absolute white dress with that Gandhi topi. And I would also notice that he came back with almost every white part of his body or the clothes almost black. And I used to ask him, Dadu, what's that? He said, नहीं नहीं काम करना होता है बेटा और हमारा ऑयल मिल में ऐसा ही होता है. And then I started going, whenever there was a holiday, I would, walk with him to his oil mill because it's a small town, Nimbahara. And every Sunday there used to be a hart. Hart is when the villagers come
Market.
to this place, a marketplace, to sell their goods.
Weekly market kind of thing.
A weekly market. So I would go with him on a Sunday, and because it was a hard labor, because nothing was automated. I mean, I'm literally talking more than 50 years ago. So he would be perennially hiring people. So he would interview people. I mean, there's really young people who will come for a job. He said, अच्छा चलो हाट चले जाओ. One of those weeks it was, तुम हाट जाओ जा पता करो मूंगफली किस भाव पे है. One guy went and he came back and said 10 रुपए किलो. The second guy went and he said, बाबूजी अभी तो 10 रुपए है लेकिन शाम तक वेट करेंगे तो ये शायद 8:30-9 तक आ जाएगा. मैंने आसपास पता किया तो ये शाम को इनको प्रेशर हो जाता है तो अपन शाम को करते हैं. The third guy came and he said, why are we buying it in the heart? We need to, this is our bread and this is our raw material. We need to work on a method of improving productivity, giving loans, and being able to buy it at 6 rupees. Because the guy is, we are going to do it in a value chain. अभी तो मैं आपको 8 रुपए में खेतों से लाके दे दूंगा. So I thought this is very important. I was in 8th class that time, so it's not that I didn't understand. But he hired the first guy. I said, that guy you said is an idiot. That's a colloquial way of putting it. I'm not trying to, create a controversy out here.
No, these days one has to be so politically correct.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that. It was my grandfather's way of saying, he's a worker bee.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, why did you hire the worker bee when you said this guy, the second guy is intelligent? He said, third guy can do my job. I mean, that's what he had said. He said, why did you hire that worker bee? He said, because the job that I want him to do is a worker bee's job. But as I grew up, I don't know why this story always stayed with me. And even today, when I meet people, when I interview people, I've put them into these 3 categories. But then I realized that many of us have a dominant hand. That dominant hand could be an improver, which is the number 2 case, or number 3 would be a game changer. But nobody works in the same zone all the time. So you take your job content and you decide what you want to hire. My grandfather's beautiful lessons. So yes, I will not have a team of 100 innovators or 100 game changers at the same time.
Hmm.
But I would definitely like to have a fair mix depending on what I'm trying to achieve. And in today's world, and that is honestly a leader's job is to find the right team, uh, you know, and that I think is what all of us, as you started asking the question, what do we all succeed or fail for? It is the people. What are we now trying to fix is what kind of people. And I promise you, it's not easy.
You would know. No one would know better than you, actually, having been at the helm of so many institutions. So I wanted to ask you, as a child, you saw, you got these lessons. Was your childhood dream always to be in business, to be an industry leader like this? Because you studied technology, or were there other avenues you wanted to follow as well?
I, a small town guy, born in Neemach, Madhya Pradesh, ended up working in, going to seven schools, and then going into Raurkela. I promise you, I did not even know what corporate life meant. Because most 50% of my classmates ended up in Engineers India Limited, SAIL, or other 50% chose to go abroad, find the school which was willing to give them scholarship. So I don't think, I mean, to say that I knew what my destiny would be, I didn't know. Number one. Number two is, yes, I was always an entrepreneur at heart. So any company that I worked with had to take into account that I would get empowered and I would be able to allowed to make mistakes. And that fortunately both the companies that I worked with, both mainly HCL and Mahindra's, both of them gave me enough freedom to experiment. And that's what I told you when I came here. That's what I loved about this place. Because in every segment I've seen a feeling of that empowerment. Nobody was trying to tell me that they need a permission from someone.
Hmm.
It didn't matter where and which part of the institute I was touching. There was somebody or the other who had pride in showing what they are achieving and what it takes for them to grow 2x, 3x, and 5x. So I think you built a beautiful institute.
That is so beautifully said, and thank you for those kind words. I wanted to ask you in a conversation with Vivek Vadvaji, who's sitting here actually. He was mentioning how in the West, industry leaders and CEOs and things tend to let success get to their heads and then go ahead and start believing their own press and become larger than life and end up making mistakes, sometimes ruining companies and things like that. But as a whole, Indian leaders of Indian industry seem to be on somewhat more stable footing. And certainly, right from the companies that you've worked with, the owners, the CEOs, they all seem to not let the success get to their heads. Why do you think that is?
So, two or three probably reasons to it. Number one is that I'm fortunate to have a wife who made sure that the work that I do is not translated into the living room or the kitchen of the house. That means you leave your ego there. When you come into my house, you are part of the same fabric. Number two is I'm also lucky that I have two children who have made sure that they show me my place. You don't know how to dress up. Dad, you made a faux pas there. Dad, that speech was not good. I mean, you should have been a little more careful. They pretty much give me a feedback online every day, every moment. So that's number two. I think, I mean, so I can say for myself is number third is I did realize that there is a voice of youth. I actually made a process of listening to the voice of youth. I made it as a process to have a shadow board, and I'm not hesitant to say that I learned a lot from the shadow board, which average age was 29, then from my supervisory board, where the average age was 62. So my supervisory board was nice, but I learned more from the shadow board. And I took the shadow board very seriously because whether it is technology or innovation or whether it is the new worries of the future, that 29-year-old average age is more attuned to it. That they have friends who have gone into the startup world. Otherwise, a CEO can get insulated into some box. You call it an ivory tower or you call it an insulated box where you don't listen. And that's the worst mistake you can do. So I was always listening.
Absolutely. A coterie can build around you, and if no, it's that old story, the emperor's new clothes. If nobody can say that the emperor's got no clothes on, then it's a problem. So I wanted to ask you also, you've seen a lot of change in our country. Our country's also gone through change. The whole world has been through change. Do you think the ease of doing business in India has improved? Are we on the right track there?
Luckily, my business was 97% overseas. All I can say is number one is in these last 10 years, being an Indian, the position on the dining table has definitely improved.
Hmm.
I mean, when I mean by position on the dining table is, it is very clear is that India is now no longer being seen as a developing nation. Now there are open statements. John Chambers addressing a full Congress of US and India businessmen, and as I'm talking of almost 2014, and saying we have a Indian Prime Minister visiting and addressing the Senate. We wish the US President was as forthful, as much of a visionary and insightful as the Indian Prime Minister. If we could trade Prime Ministers with the President, we would happily do it. Now, this is that time a very, very powerful corporate executive called John Chambers, who used to be, the head of Cisco that time. So my point is very simple that yes, we have had a nation which has been led by a person who has shown that if you position yourself, then rest of us will work together. The reality is whether it is mission to the Mars, whether it is all about the digital infrastructure, whether it is about your ambition of physical infrastructure, whether it's airports, roads, ports, railways, everything, there is a desire to do 5x better than what you were doing earlier. And I think this 5x or 10x, I mean, was so happy to see Prime Minister Modi announcing that India will be a serious contender to 2036 Olympics. Now, he's not talking about when he will probably be the prime minister. He's 73 today. He's put a marker for 13 years from now. At 86, America will have a 86-year-old president, but India probably not. But it is not important. Important is that for a country which wins just a handful of medals in Olympics, today has a desire and has put a marker. It's like a John F. Kennedy's mission to the moon.
Hmm.
So I think this, dreaming with your eyes open and enabling and feeling that we are a developed nation. Not that our problems are 100% gone away.
Hmm.
We're not kidding ourselves. I mean, yes, we do have some of the unique challenges. I mean, 1.44 billion people will have challenges, but we are willing to still say we dream big and we will deliver big.
So true. So true. Now, with all the new technology coming in the tech front, of course, and you've been in the tech industry, is opening up and its exponential growth is happening there, and innovation is also happening. Some people fear that this would lead to a degradation of traditional wisdom and values. And you yourself have undergone Ayurvedic treatment. So, do you think that that fear is well founded, or we will continue to cherish what is the best of the past while forging what is new?
I think, in my opinion, it's an opportunity of taking Ayurveda to the rest of the world. The way India took yoga to the rest of the world, the way India has probably taken cricket to a lot of other playing nations now.
Sure, sure.
I mean, it was heartful to see. I mean, using the word heartful because I'm at heartfulness, but heartful to see Afghanistan playing so well. It
Absolutely.
was so beautiful to see
Absolutely.
Netherlands playing so well. So, my point is very simple. If you are strong in something, why not take it? And there's always a catalyst. I mean, whether, Baba Ramdev was a catalyst. So I am sure that Ayurveda will find that catalyst. I am sure the naturopathy will find that catalyst. I am sure that the different parts of technology will only help. It's the same way that you have an app called Heartfulness today, and and that app you can use it wherever you are, whichever part of the world, and it is available to all 7 billion people at the same time. So my view is technology is a enabler, not only an enabler, it is the glue which somebody has to use it properly. But the best part is, I think that awareness is happening. And I am sure we will find a catalyst which will take traditional medicine, traditional way of living, traditional scriptures, and the traditional advantages. And at the same time, there were disadvantages.
Absolutely.
It's not that
Everything
every
was rosy.
tradition
Yeah.
is the one that we have to blindly follow.
Hmm.
I mean, there are traditional which need to be discarded.
I mean, we look at the past through rose-tinted spectacles, thinking that everything was hunky-dory. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we need to get rid of as well. So you mentioned you've come here one day after your retirement, and this is after such an active life. And what are your plans for the future? How are you going to keep yourself busy?
So, how did I land up here? That's the first question, actually. Uh, Vivek Vadva and us are family friends. And as family friends, I was in US last week of November. Uh, it was more to welcome my daughter's second child. Uh, you know, and I called on Vivek, and I was generally having a cup of coffee with him, and he asked me a very fundamental question: what is the purpose of your life? How are you going to repurpose yourself after you hang your boots? And I tried giving him a very simplistic answer, which is what I gave you, that I've always been a karma yogi, and I will, till I have fuel in my body, I will remain a karma yogi. Number two is, I've always felt is that God has made me or empowered me to make an impact. I work with my wife. We run an NGO called Titliya. We look after about 2,500 young children who are in the slums or who live a life which is slightly, deprived. And we try and give them education, because education is what made me or my wife different or gave us more opportunities. So I said, I'll continue to work on education. I'm working with my own college. I'm a founder of a university in North India called Plaksha University. It's a collective philanthropy. So it's not only I am the founder, we are 100 founders, but we are creating a world class university. Similarly, you know, I am a chairman of I am Nagpur. I'm working a little bit with Ronnie Screwvala because I've been a critique of the India's education system. While India's education system gave all those IITNs and IIMs, but I've been a little bit of a critique. So I realized the gap that it has. So I work with Ronnie Screwvala on upgrad. He said, so far, so good. I mean, so this is Vivek playing back to me. Is there any other bigger purpose? I said, my son is into green energy. I think the world needs green energy with all these, challenges of climate control, carbon emissions. And I may not be solving all the problems, but I'll help my son expand that part. He gave his views on, various alternate fuels. As usual, Vivek was outspoken and critical. I mean, he didn't think EV was the right way to solve the problem, but that's Vivek for you. Uh, we started chatting, and it became very, very clear that there is a lot more to be done. And I should not leave the fabric called technology. I should not leave because this education, while it has technology, but it is not all pervasive. Uh, while green energy is also technology, but it is not something which is impacting, potentially 7 billion people.
Hmm.
So this is where, Vivek started dreaming in front of me about a potential to dream and a potential to make life of 7 billion people better. I think I'm at a pencil sketching mode, so I can't, go beyond that, but it is very, very clear that Vivek has a design, and I think I'm falling into that pattern where if we put all the building blocks, all the ecosystem components together, we should be able to, you know, create happiness for 7 billion people. Obviously, as the old saying goes, the world started with the word I. So first make us happy. And I'm not talking about meditation here. We're talking about I here is the current pilot group and then expand it to the district or to a state or to the country. I think we're getting the whole design elements into place and there is a potential. So, yes, I might be having a bigger calling. And I'm happy that Vivek is not only the coach here, but he's also the guy who's kicking the football.
That's fantastic. And we wish you all the success in that, and that keeps you busy. One thing I wanted to ask you, suppose there is for youngsters who are starting out in life, and they are full of innovative ideas. What would you recommend? Do they join a company and work, get experience? Or if they are full of innovation, do they, like Steve Jobs, strike out on their own and try and start up something? Because startups is a word that's thrown around a lot, but we hear the success stories, but there are many, many failures too.
I think there are beautiful tools available now for individual to do a self-assessment and a psychometric assessment. Whether my definition of these three categories of worker bee, improver, or game changer, I think most of us don't take a pause to understand who we are. And who here, I'm not talking spiritual part, just purely. And number two, I have challenged youngsters all over the world to share their 5 year goal or a 10-year goal. More often than not, I want to get a promotion or I want to get this much money. They've never said what will give them a fulfillment. I think that's a second question they need to answer to themselves. Then the third is then the journey. It's not about work-life balance. I mean, just because you come home at 6 o'clock and you switch on a TV and you watch one more series, I mean, is that work-life balance? I mean, so my request to every youngster is, you are educated, you have better tools than I had when I started my career 42 years ago. Use those tools. Number two, understand your own goals. You can change every day. But if you do not even map your journey, please map your journey. It will make you feel better about yourself. That's all I can say.
That's wonderful advice that I think lots of youngsters would do well to heed. Lastly, I would like to ask you, as a CEO, you go through a lot of stress for sure. We are in a meditation center, which basically is a relaxation and de-stressing. What was your routine to get rid of the stress or manage the stress?
I think I didn't even realize it, but I was doing meditation in my own way. Like, for example, my morning was always not switching on any equipment when I got up. For me, it was always a peaceful walk outside. I didn't hit the gym as soon as I woke up. I just went for a peaceful walk. I mean, I think it was my own way a moment of self-reflection. Similarly, at the end of the day, I mean, there was always this moment which was again a moment of self-reflection. I mean, I did it in a very different way. I would switch on a TV and, watch any channel. It didn't matter whether it was National Geographic or whether it was Doordarshan or an NDTV or India Today. To me, it was just that cleanse yourself. I don't want the thoughts when I go to bed. I don't want to have the thoughts of what went right or what went wrong at my workplace. So in my own way, I had my own way of dealing with it. But now that when I, as I told you that I was spending time with Vivek and, spending time with this beautiful trainer called Pragya, I can only say that I wish they had come in my life a little earlier.
Well, it's never too late. And maybe the first day after your retirement is the start of some new and beautiful chapter further on. And I would just like to thank you for taking the time out to sit down and talk with us. It's been wonderful. It's been a wonderful interaction. And I do wish you keep coming back to Kanha Shanti Vanam. We would be honored to host you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rudy. And just for the records, I have committed to Vivek Wadhwa and your wonderful trainer called Ramki that I am coming in for a restart program, a formal restart program, where he is going to fix my brain cells, and I am going to be ever grateful to him for, triggering that restart.
Wonderful. That's lucky for us because we'll have you here again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rudy. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of KanaCast. Please follow and subscribe to KanaCast on Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. Until next time, woof woof.